of Israel. You have the floor.
Madam President, last week, Ms. Vanessa Fraser tried to silence Israel. Today, she comes before this council to lecture Israel. That will not work. Israel will not be silenced. Not by Ms. Fraser, not by the Secretary General, not by any UN official who thinks they can publish accusations against Israel and then cut off our response. Last week, in a UN conference room, Ms. Fraser shouted over me. She broke protocol. She tried to censor Israel as I exposed a report that made baseless accusations against us. She called my remarks personal attacks. They were not personal. They were professional. But since Ms. Fraser raised what is personal, let me be clear. For Israel, this is personal. It is personal when UN officials attack Israel. It is personal when they spread anti-Semitic hate. It is personal when they try to silence us when calling it out. Ms. Fraser wants to talk about personal attacks. I want to talk about her record. Let's take a look. This is Exhibit A from her social media. An anti-Semite posted this image in reply to Ms. Fraser, and instead of condemning it, she engaged with it. Last Saturday, this image is a swastika replacing the Star of David on Israel's flag. That is classic anti-Semitism, textbook anti-Semitism. Ms. Fraser's response, she said, and I quote, that's a reply, "I look forward to a constructive engagement. Together we can eliminate this scourge and do justice to all victims and survivors." Constructive engagement with an anti-Semite? Look at this tweet. You know, if that would happen to you, what would you do? You would condemn it, delete it, apologize. She didn't do that. She blamed us. We have the evidence. On social media, everything stays there, even if you delete it. And now she comes before the council with another report against us. Look at this Exhibit B. She recently reported the claim that Israel dropped explosives disguised as children's toy in Lebanon. There was no evidence, none. Just a blood libel dressed up as a concern for children in Lebanon. You know who made the claim? Maybe the representative from the UK is familiar with her. Her name is Sarah Wilkinson, a Holocaust denier. She was arrested in the UK by UK counter-terrorism police. This is who Ms. Fraser aligns herself with. And look at this exhibit, see. Earlier this year, she shared an image of rows of body bags to support allegations about attacks on a school in Iran. The image had nothing to do with those allegations, but she shared it anyway. And when the truth came out that it's an old picture, did she correct the record? No. She deleted the post because those body bags were not school children. They were innocent Iranian protesters massacred by the Iranian regime. But this is bigger than Ms. Fraser, because she is not the exception. She is proof of the moral failure that has taken hold of the UN, where Israel is accused before it is even heard, condemned before it is answered. And when Israel is finally given the floor, you want quick answers. So let me address this report. Because before this Council accepts the findings of this report, it should understand something important. The problem is not only bias, and I know Ms. Fraser's opinions when she sat with us as a PR. I know what she thinks about the conflict. I'm aware of that. It's not only the bias she brought to the position. The problem is also the process. Year after year, the CAC mechanism inflates the number of violations attributed to Israel while underreporting, minimizing, or failing to attribute violations committed by Palestinian terrorist groups. The numbers look objective. The conclusion looks scientific, but the methodology is not applied equally. And when the process is distorted, the findings are distorted too. So let me give you a few examples. First, the report accuses Israeli security forces of using Palestinian children as human shields. That's a horrible allegation. That allegation is not only false, it turns reality on its head. It is Hamas that builds tunnels beneath homes. It is Hamas that fires from civilian areas. It is Hamas that recruits children as child soldiers. And you know how many of the terrorists that were killed were children? Have you seen it in the report? The numbers? How they're recruiting them, threatening them, their families? That is not neutrality. That is distortion. Another example, the report repeatedly accuses Israel of attacking schools and hospitals. But where is the serious examination of Hamas's military use of those same schools and hospitals? Yes, you know Shifa Hospital. You know what was beneath that hospital in Gaza? How many tunnels were there? How many hostages were kept there? Where are the command centers of Hamas? The report focuses on Israeli attacks while largely ignoring the military use of civilian infrastructure that turned schools, hospitals, and residential areas into terrorist bases. And there is another problem. The CAC mechanism repeatedly expands and stretches its own categories when Israel is involved. Hundreds of attacks on schools and hospitals are attributed to Israel, yet the standards used to reach those numbers are rarely subjected to the scrutiny applied elsewhere. Also, the report accuses Israeli security forces, and that's something which is very serious, of abducting a Palestinian child. One alleged incident, no details provided, no facts, no evidence, no information that would allow anyone in this room to independently assess the allegation. We are simply told to accept it. That is not accountability. That is not transparency. And there is a bitter irony here, because you know that we saw the pictures of Israeli kids being abducted from their homes into Gaza. We saw what happened on October 7th. For Israel, the crime of abduction is not theoretical, and this report should use that word with greater care. Madam President, Israel is not asking this Council to ignore allegations. Israel is asking this Council to test them, test the evidence, the sources, the claims. The same way Israel is tested every single day, because child protection requires facts, it requires evidence, it requires standards applied equally. Not one standard for democracies and another for terrorist organizations. The CAC mandate was created to protect children, not to rehash Hamas talking points. Ms. Fraser told us on X that she looks forward to constructive engagement. We have seen what that means for her. Constructive engagement with anti-Semites, constructive engagement with anti-Israel activists, constructive engagement with the same small circle of special rapporteurs, so-called experts, and UN officials who are united by one obsession, attacking Israel. You know, they cite one another, they validate one another, They amplify one another, and then they call it independence. So let us call this what it is: not constructive engagement, selective engagement. Ms. Fraser tried to silence Israel on Friday. It did not work then, and it will not work today. Israel will not be silenced. Thank you.